The old man died clutching a secret that would haunt a priest for the rest of his life. But before his final breath he laughed, a cold, mocking sound that echoed through the hospital room like a curse. What Father Michael didn't know was that this dying stranger had been searching for him for 700 years. It started on a rain-soaked Tuesday in Portland, Oregon. Father Michael Chen was making his rounds at Providence Hospital, offering comfort to the terminally ill, when he entered room 437. The patient was ancient, impossibly so. His skin was like parchment stretched over bones, his eyes milky with cataracts. But there was something else in those eyes. Recognition. The old man's cracked lips pulled into a sneer the moment the priest walked through the door. Another one, the old man rasped in accented English, though Michael couldn't place the origin. French, maybe? Medieval French. You wear the collar, but you know nothing of sacrifice. Nothing of what it means to truly serve. Michael had heard worse. Years of ministry had thickened his skin against the bitterness of the dying. He smiled gently and approached the bed. I'm Father Michael. I'm here if you'd like to talk or pray or just pray. The old man's laugh was sharp, cutting. I knew your kind when they were warriors, when they bled for their faith instead of hiding behind empty words in comfortable churches. You're a shadow of what once was. A joke. Michael felt the sting but kept his composure. The nurses said you've refused to give them your name. Is there anyone I can call for you? Family. My family turned to dust 6 centuries ago. The old man's eyes focused with sudden, unsettling clarity. But you interest me, priest. You have his face. Whose face? The old man's hand shot out with surprising speed, gripping Michael's wrist. His strength was unnatural for someone so frail. Bernard de Clairvaux. You could be his descendant. The universe laughs at us all, doesn't it? Michael gently tried to pull away, but the grip tightened. Sir, I think you're confused. My family is Chinese. We've been in California since the gold rush. There's no European... Bloodlines twist and turn like rivers, the old man interrupted. But the soul remembers. He released Michael's wrist and fell back against the pillows, breathing heavily. You want to know my name? Fine. I am Jacques de Molay, or I was. Now I'm just a man who's lived too long with too much regret. The name meant nothing to Michael at first. He made a mental note to look it up later. Mr. de Molay, can I get you anything? Water? Should I call the nurse? Sit, the old man commanded. You owe me that much. Your predecessor, not you personally, but the institution you represent. They owe me everything. Against his better judgment, Michael sat. Something in the old man's voice had shifted from mockery to desperation. This was more than delirium. This was a man who needed to unburden himself before the end. In 1307, Jacques began, his voice growing stronger. I was Grand Master of the Knights Templar. We were the most powerful military order in Christendom. We protected pilgrims, fought in the Holy Land, and guarded secrets that would have shattered the faith of millions. But power makes men jealous, and King Philip IV of France wanted our wealth. So he conspired with a weak pope, and on Friday the 13th of October, they arrested us all. Hundreds of knights tortured until we confessed to heresies we never committed. Michael had heard of the Templars, vaguely. Medieval knights, conspiracy theories, Hollywood movies. But this man spoke with the intimate detail of someone who'd been there. The rational part of Michael's mind screamed that this was impossible. The other part, the part that had witnessed too many unexplainable deathbed phenomena, stayed silent and listened. They burned me at the stake in 1314, Jacques continued. I felt the flames consume my flesh. I called down a curse on Philip and Pope Clement as I died, and they both followed me to death within the year. I should have stayed dead, but something intervened. What do you mean, intervened? Jacques' eyes grew distant. When you die cursing God and man alike, sometimes something else answers. I woke in the ashes, whole again, immortal. Cursed to walk the earth, watching the order I loved become a punchline, a myth, a theme for bad novels and worse movies. And I hated, oh how I hated your church for its betrayal. Every priest I've encountered over the centuries, I've mocked them, tested them, waiting for one who embodied what we once were. Michael's heart was pounding. This was madness. It had to be. Yet the old man's conviction was absolute, and there was something in his eyes, and depth of sorrow that couldn't be faked. Why are you telling me this? Because yesterday I tried to die, Jacques whispered. I've tried many times over the centuries, but yesterday I succeeded. I threw myself from the Fremont Bridge. I hit the water and felt my body break. Finally, I thought. Finally, it ends. But some kayakers pulled me out. They saved me. He laughed bitterly. The doctors say my injuries should have killed me, but here I am, still breathing. And I realized something in that cold water. My curse isn't immortality. It's that I can only die when I find forgiveness, when I stop hating what the church became. That's why you called me a joke, Michael said quietly, understanding dawning. You wanted me to fail your test. You wanted to keep hating, Jacques nodded weakly. But you didn't fail. You stayed. You listened to a cruel old man's ravings without judgment. You showed me something I'd forgotten existed. Grace without condition. Tears streamed down his ancient face. I mocked you because you're everything I should have been. We Templars became so obsessed with being warriors that we forgot how to be servants. We hoarded wealth and secrets, convinced of our own righteousness. Maybe Philip was a greedy tyrant, but we had lost our way long before he came for us. Michael reached out and took the old man's hand. If your story is true, and I don't know what to believe right now, then you've carried this burden long enough. Forgiveness isn't about whether you deserve it. It's about being willing to lay down the hate and step into something better. Will you hear my confession, Father? Jacques asked, his voice small and frightened, like a child's. Michael nodded. Of course. What followed was the longest confession of Michael's priesthood. Jacques spoke of 7 centuries of bitterness, of violence he'd committed in his rage, of people he'd hurt because they represented the institution that betrayed him. He spoke of the real Templar secrets, not magical artifacts or hidden treasures, but the simple, devastating truth that they'd been human, flawed, sometimes noble, sometimes corrupt, always complicated, just like every institution that would follow them. When it was finished, Michael spoke the words of absolution. Jacques' grip on his hand loosened. The old man's breathing became shallow. I can feel it, Jacques whispered. The curse. It's lifting. I'm so tired, Father. So very tired. Then rest, Michael said gently. Your war is over. Jacques de Molay smiled, genuinely smiled, for the first time in 700 years. Thank you, he breathed. Thank you for showing an old soldier that the faith isn't dead. It just changed forms. Maybe that's not betrayal. Maybe that's evolution. He died quietly, the bitterness finally gone from his face. The monitors flatlined. Nurses rushed in, but Michael waved them off. This death needed no intervention. Later, when Michael checked the hospital records, there was no Jacques de Molay listed. Room 437's patient files showed only John Doe, approximately 90 years old. No identification. The man had left no fingerprints, no DNA matches. Nothing to prove he'd ever existed before showing up in that hospital bed. But in the old man's personal effects, the nurses found something strange, a small wooden cross, crude and ancient, with a date carved into it, 1314, and on the back, barely visible, were the words, Non nobis, Domine, non nobis, sed nomini tua da gloria. Not unto us, O Lord, not unto us, but to your name give glory. The Templar motto. Father Michael kept that cross. He carries it still, a reminder that faith isn't about being perfect or powerful or even always right. It's about showing up, listening, and offering grace to those who've forgotten what it feels like. Sometimes the greatest act of faith is simply helping someone lay down a burden they were never meant to carry alone. Even if they've been carrying it for 700 years, even if they spent those centuries convinced you were the enemy,